Members, we have a quorum. We have 2 items on the agenda today. First, can I ask the clerk to invite the government officials and representatives of the WKCD authority to come in? Good morning.
早晨，早晨。今日咧就第一個議程咧就係我。
Item 1 on the agenda is to carry on with our previous discussion on the integration and connectivity of the WKCD with its neighbouring districts. I hope you will talk more about the connectivity with the vicinity. Last time we spoke a lot on intra-district connectivity, but let us talk about inter-district connectivity. You may have a lot of space within the WKCD area, but then outside the CD, we have all districts. Let us make use of a paper CB bracket 2 440 bracket 01 and bracket 02. We'd like to thank Mrs. Betty Fong, Permanent Secretary for Home Affairs, and her team, and also representatives of the WKCD Authority for attending the meeting. First of all, Mrs. Fong, can you take us through the paper or representative of the WKCDA? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. Last time at the Joint Subcommittee meeting, we introduced to you the interim recommendations of the Traffic Operation Plan. And we also mentioned the progress of the works to effect connectivity with neighbouring areas and districts. We talked about the provision of parking spaces for coaches and private cars, and also possible congestion because of traffic generated, and also marine traffic. And since we did not have enough time last time, we will take forward the discussion today. Today we have provided a supplementary paper, and we have responded to the points of concern raised at the last meeting. In January, we also provided a paper to inform members about the connectivity and integration with districts around WKCD. We will be happy to take your questions afterwards. May I refer to paras 11 and 12 of the paper? We are proposing, because we are talking about overall design effectiveness, and we propose to entrust the works covering the design of Zone 2, including underground roads therein, to the WKCDA. We have already got the monetary provision for the administration. Now we'd like to also entrust the works to the WKCDA for better integration and consistency. Anything from the WKCDA? Anything else? Nothing from the WKCDA today. If that's the case, we open the floor for questions, 4 minutes each, including a reply. Ms. Chen Yunhan. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to integration and connectivity, we are talking about the actual design of WKCD now. I have many questions, and that is why I have asked to have this discussion today. I hope the clerk will record all my questions, and I will certainly follow up on all the issues, because now we are doing the specific design. I like to mention 3 aspects. At the beginning, it is said that it should be a car-free space at WKCD. You also said that there will be 3,000 car parking spaces. From day one, we have taken up the issue with the administration. We said that that should not be the configuration. Well, I agree now that there are more exits, but it has not really dealt with certain issues. So in terms of planning and design, I hope you can do better. In this paper, you have 4 exits for cars, but you still allow for over 2,000 car parking spaces. At the beginning, you talked about 3,000. Now you are clawing back. But, Mr. Chairman, if the TD is saying that if you have so many facilities, you have to provide a complementary number of car parking spaces. I think that is not right. I have asked Mr. Wong Kam Singh, the Secretary for the Environment. I said, you just came back from Paris. What are your latest recommendations? And as some experts said, if you have more parking spaces, you provide the temptation for people to drive to WKCD, and I think it is not necessary. I hope you can lower the number of car parking spaces. You should lower it to 2,000. If you say it is the TD that insists, I think you should take Wong Kam Singh here. I have already talked to his political assistant. I have also written in a column today. I think this is ironic. I don't need a reply. I want to state all my questions first. Okay, continue. Number 2, the West Rail exit. Again, there will be exhaust generated. If cars come out from Austin Road underpass, they cannot go straight to the Western Harbour Crossing. They have to make around elements. In other words, they would be making these rounds, and in fact there are already many cars there, and so there will be more congestion. Why don't you provide an elevated road from Austin Road to Western Harbour Crossing? I hope the administration can do it better, because you are creating more exhaust by having cars make rounds in the district. This is not satisfactory. Number 3, this has something to do with a long term. In the future, the harbour is beautiful. We have been to other places, and even if their scenery is not as good as ours, like I have been to central Chicago, and I was at Michigan Lake, and they have buildings around it, and it is nothing compared to our harbour in Hong Kong. So you should provide water taxis and landing steps, so you make the best use of the scenery. And in Chim Sa Tsui, maybe you should do something about the China-Hong Kong ferry pier, and also next to the fire service station. I think you are talking to the people there to move it away. I will not go into the specifics now, but how can we be able to access the harbour more? Later on, when we come to the Siqi Center, I will ask more detailed questions, but those are the 3 questions. I think they will be recorded for the moment, Ms. Chan. We will ask for responses in the second round. Ms. Emily Lau, just now the PS said that they would entrust the WKCDA to also build the basement of Zone 2. And that brings to mind the entrustment to the MTRCL for building the XRL. And now there is a court case. At that time, it was said that, okay, you will do it and I will pay up. That is what the administration said now. Of course, the MTRCL would not agree. In other words, the administration will be squandering. The entrusted party will be squandering money, but now they are, of course, making a supplemental agreement. DS or PS, this is not your bureau, but are you aware of that possibility? Now you are entrusting something to another organization. I am very worried. I hope you will not come back for the Finance Committee for supplementary provision. PS? In zones 3A, 3B, we are already making use of the mode of entrustment. You know that the WKCD is a highly integrated facility. Within the same zone, we have arts facilities, cultural facilities. We also have residential and commercial, and also retail and office space. We hope we can have one design for the topside development and underground development. And we are only entrusting the design, not the construction. You remember in July in FC and also at this subcommittee, we have secured funding to the tune of $800 million, I think 800 million. So it is just for the design. and also geological investigation. In WKCD, if we don't entrust the works, and if there are different works undergoing at the same time at WKCD, there may be an interface problem. In the past, we could see that at WKCD we can go for this mode of cooperation. It is cost effective. Our experience thinks that this is desirable. Mr. Chairman, you are not answering my question.
So you are not building it yet. It's just a design stage. So I hope that in the entrustment agreement, things can be set out more clearly. So it won't be like the XRL. So terms and conditions should be set out clearly. For example, how they're going to spend the money and how they're going to do the design, so that taxpayers' money can be protected. So you won't come back to us saying that, well, we didn't agree on those last time, so now they can squander the money. Maybe later on the CEO can respond. Well, for our entrustment works with the WKCD, actually there are terms and conditions to govern them. Now we are entrusting the WKCDA to do it, so now they are actually spending less money than expected. So I'm sure that all these terms and conditions will be settled in the project agreement.
And the row between the MTRC and the government and the Transport Bureau and so on. So what is going to happen here? We hope that there would be some protection. Can you explain to us what's happening?
Thank you. Yes, indeed. As members are probably already aware, we are already entrusted with the design of the 3A, 3B basement. The design has to be agreed with the government departments. We can't unilaterally take a decision on the design, nor can any of the contracts be let without the government departments being involved. So there is protection for the government departments. Interestingly, because of the success in our procurement arrangements, we've actually been able to bring the cost of those projects in under the estimated budgets provided by the government. So we're actually providing good value for money so far, and we'll continue to do that as we go forward.
I think you should give them a lesson on how to do it. But I think that maybe either you show us the wording later or something to show the agreement between the West Kowloon Authority and the administration. There is this clause which shows that you cannot just keep spending, and if you have cost overrun, you come back and ask for more. So, 秘書長你知我講咩啦？嚇，你係咪可以？
So you understand what we are talking about, right, Permanent Secretary? Just because we want to know the contents of the agreements so that we can rest assured. Well, today we want members to support our proposal. So in the future, when we sign the agreements, the terms and conditions will be similar to those for Zone 3A and 3B. If members are interested, we can give you the details. And also for the civil engineering department is working very closely with WKCDA, and we will be ironing out the costing very carefully. I hope our legal advisor can look at those terms and conditions for us. Next, Mr. Yu Si-wing. Thank you, Chairman. As for marine transport, I would like to thank the government and the WKCDA for giving us the answer concerning coach parking. And I hope that coach parking can be enhanced in the future. And also for marine transport, I would like to ask about paragraph 13. You are saying that there will be landing facilities for private tour operators, and also water taxis will be available. So for the Kowloon City District, we can see that they are also working on a pier, and they also have similar arrangements. However, because now there are so many coaches going to Kowloon City, traffic congestions are always caused, and there are not enough parking spaces for the coaches. So the government is planning to have a pier at the WKCD. How many tour vessels will be using the landing facilities at the same time? If many tourists are using the piers, then the coaches will also go there to drop off and pick up the tourists. And when they come back from the water tour, the coaches will come again. So are you prepared for this? I'll ask the WKCDA to answer this question.
On to IC. I think I'd better clarify two things. Because of the nature of the design, coaches will not actually be able to access to the proposed ferry pier directly. So we see this as a very different type of operation. In other words, it will be for visitors to the district who will access and leave via the ferry pier. We don't anticipate many people would access by the ferry pier and leave by the coach or vice versa. So I think there's a different concept that we're looking at for this. And obviously at this stage it's far too early to say how many people might use that particular direction. Perhaps YC can deal with the coach parking question.
補充下。
呢個旅遊車停泊呢，我哋上次都講過。Well, we have talked about the design, and we think that there will be 20 to 25 coach parking spaces. In the design, actually, we have reserved 40 spaces, so there is a certain buffer so that more coaches can be parked there. So after they drop off the passengers, they will just park. Well, they will just park there for a while, so they won't park there for a very long time. The coaches will just park there for a short period of time to wait for passengers, etc. So with regard to Ms. Chen Yunhan's question concerning car parking spaces, when the WKCDA did the design, we had to follow the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines. That is, we have to look at the gross floor area, and then we need to provide enough parking spaces. And we are already using the minimum level. And also we have a car park sharing arrangement, so 15% of car parking spaces have been cut. And we have 3 MTR stations, Kowloon Station, and Austin Station, and XRL Terminal. So we can further cut the number of car parking spaces. Yes, initially we had 3,000 car parking spaces, but now due to a lot of factors, the number is reduced to about 2,200. This is already the minimum requirement set out in the Hong Kong Planning Standards and Guidelines. Helena Wong. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask about marine transport. Is there any progress in this area? How about marine transport?
We've been having a series of discussions with different potential operators of different forms of marine transport. But clearly there are 2 issues that will affect their decision. First is, can they set up the system that they want? And the idea they're having is a sort of around the harbour hop-on, hop-off service, which I think would be very attractive to us. And we would certainly encourage them to use West Kowloon as one of the hop-on, hop-off destinations. So we've had those discussions, but there are some commercial sensitivities about that sort of discussion, so I can't get into detail. The other sort of discussions we're having are with service providers that could provide access for event-related marine transport. And we've already done this in the past. For example, for this Free Space Festival, we arranged with one of the ferry companies to put on ferries to deliver passengers to the Free Space event. That's worked very well, and we'll pursue that again in future. So those are the 2 options that we're currently looking at. But frankly, we're open to anyone who would wish to approach us with ideas about different forms of marine transport as they are developed.
Okay.
So,
Chairman, if special events or festivals or large-scale activities are held at the WKCD, there will be water transport provided. That is good. But I hope that I can see daily marine transport provided, because there are not only big festivals at the WKCD, there are always activities there. So I think we need a regular marine service instead of just providing them during festivals. So I hope that when the WKCD looks at this, you have to work on both fronts. Now, I understand that if you want a ferry service to be provided on a regular basis, it will be quite difficult because they don't want to lose money. Just like, it's like what happened at Whampoa Garden. And also the government doesn't want to subsidize the ferry companies, so it will be very expensive for them to operate. So if we cannot solve this marine transport problem, then there may be issues because there are congestions in that area already. You are saying that there will be improvements in the future. Now, in paragraph 8 of the paper, you are saying that the road improvement works will be completed in 2018. So will traffic congestions really be resolved then? Now, it's a very difficult place to get to, and also there are traffic jams all the time in that area. So if people can go to WKCD by sea, then it would be a good way of transport. So we cannot rely on railways. For some people, it may be very difficult for them to take a train to WKCD. So I hope that for the ferry service, you can really provide it in a better manner. And also, at this subcommittee, I have made 2 suggestions, but up to now I haven't heard anything about it. So I would like to ask the WKCDA about this. One is about the elements and the barrier-free access in it. I don't think there are enough elevators there. I have been talking about this for several years. So I've been talking to the MTRCL and the WKCDA. It seems that no one will promise me that they will follow up on this. Well, there will be a lot of people going to WKCD, but there are not enough elevators there. So if you are on a wheelchair or you are pushing a trolley, and then there will not be enough barrier-free facilities for them. Because when the elements was designed, it didn't expect that so many people would go to WKCD, which is just next to it. So can anyone answer this question? And also for the City Center, I think outside there is a tunnel leading to the old district of Jordan. We already said that the tunnel should be upgraded. Maybe internal refurbishment should be done. So what has been done in that area? Maybe they can answer you in the next round. I agree with Ms. Helena Wong. Well, we went to Venice because we have the Venice Biennale. I have also been there. Tourists would really like to take gondolas or water taxis there because other than going to a certain destination, you can also enjoy the scenery. So I think water transport can fulfill these purposes. That is, it's a means of transport, and at the same time, people can enjoy the view of the harbor. So I think you can design routes so that people can have this kind of enjoyment, and I'm sure tourists will love it. And also, it would allay the traffic congestion problem. And now you are still doing a study. This should be a carbon-free area and a green area. So I think external vehicles shouldn't be allowed to go in, and inside WKCD there should be green transport facilities so that people can enjoy fresher air there. And even for the residential buildings and offices there, when people want to get to them, they also would use green vehicles, for example, golf carts, etc. I wonder if Yau Ma Tei and Tai Kok Tsui would be able to cope with the future traffic, because there will be more people going to this area, at least 2,000 to 3,000 people per day. So can you conduct a study? Maybe there can be a traffic interchange at WKCD. So when the vehicles arrive at this transport interchange at WKCD, they would have to get off their cars and then they would take the vehicles inside the WKCD.
我哋如果
We've paid a visit to the XRL terminus yesterday, and in fact, they have a lot of facilities there. But if you don't do the interface, maybe you will become a laughingstock because people have to take a convoluted tour just to cross the road. Lastly, in terms of traffic, as I mentioned in the past, if there are major activities and events, people might have to leave by vessels, and whether that could be included in the tickets so as to encourage people to make use of marine traffic. Thank you. Maybe someone will take up those points.
Let me deal with the number of points that you've raised. First, in fact, we are looking at this idea of bundling tickets with other forms of offer. It may include transport offers, for example, maybe bundling with the MTR, for example, would be one idea, food and other opportunities. So if you buy a ticket for a theatre, we can book a restaurant, we can book a car park place, we can book a ferry place, we can book an MTR place. All of that bundling we are actually looking at. It's a very good idea. So that we will be following up on. In terms of the transportation facilities in the district, again, we're only looking at green forms of transportation within the district itself. And the idea that you've mentioned of vehicles coming in or people coming in one form of transport and then transferring onto another, that is exactly the model that we're going to pursue. I've had some preliminary suggestions from various companies as to what would be the best form, but at this stage we're still studying because, of course, it will take a while. One of the key issues, though, is how do we get from the eastern end to the western end when we won't have the central section for some time? And I think that's where transport using the water is perhaps an option that we should look at in more detail. Finally, in terms of the water taxi idea, obviously we would welcome water taxis to use the site, but that's not a policy that we can take the lead on, I'm afraid. That's something we have to defer to the government and the private sector. But certainly they'd be very welcome to be using our ferry piers, that's for sure.
Hi.
Chairman, do I have some time, please? Maybe later. Let me say a few words. Or let her speak. Let her speak. I understand a few members have mentioned marine traffic. I will come back to it also, said Ms. Emily Lau. I think you understand that if we only rely on WKCDA and ask WKCD to support regular marine traffic, of course they will have difficulty because for them it is going to incur a loss for them. When you say regular frequency, it would mean that the ferry service have to be provided around the day, and I think it's difficult for the WKCDA to take it up independently. It can talk to people, but we have reservations just to asking, just to ask the WKCDA to do this. But we support the concept. If we can have some water taxi routes within the harbour, we believe it will add vibrancy to the entire harbour. I think the government will have to take the lead, will have to talk to the different stakeholders, including the landing steps and people who are going to operate the landing steps. Would they be happy to support or subsidize a kind of water route so that there will be better connectivity? I think it will be up to the government to talk to the stakeholders, but that will take time. Ms. Chen Yunhan, second round. How many minutes do I have? 3. I welcome what Mrs. Betty Fong said just now, but give us a timetable. You have said that you would talk about marine traffic many times. Since Mr. Pesca said it would not be up to the WKCDA to take it up, it would be for the Bureau to do it. Then, Mrs. Fong, please give us a timetable, because different departments are involved. If they only do their own jobs, then we cannot allow it to be realized. So PS, can you give us a timetable next time? Also, I thank Mr. Ng for saying that we could minimize the number of cars so that there will be less traffic congestion. Mr. Ng commented on it, and then he said even if he lowers the number of cars coming, still space is limited. You said there will still be 2,300. Why don't you lower it to 2,000? Can we use 2,000 as an indicator? But then again, this has to be answered by the government. Mr. Ng cannot do it alone. You have to coordinate it with the transport department. So it's again for Mrs. Betty Fong to answer me. Okay, apart from marine traffic, under the present design, you come up from underwater. You will make a big detour round elements before you can access the Western Harbour crossing, and you will be adding to the existing congestion. Mrs. Lee, you should know this very well. Right now, you exit from the west, and then you have to make a detour around elements before you can access the Cross Harbour Tunnel. Can you build a road inside? I have got this sketch with me. I asked some professionals to draw it up for me. Now you can actually do it like this, and you don't have to go around elements. This red line is drawn by me. Just do it like this, a straightforward route. So people don't have to go around elements. Maybe I can send this to you, and I hope you will respond to it right away. Mrs. Lee can take up this point first. Maybe members are aware that the Highways Department has got a scheme. The elevated road of Ah Cheong Road will be connected to the southbound toll plaza of Western Harbour Crossing. If you leave WKCD from the west, you can make use of the elevated road and access southbound Western Harbour Crossing right away. But if you exit from the Harbour Crossing and come into WKCD, it will be a longer distance. The other points, car parking, parking spaces, Chairman. Mrs. Fong. Thank you, Chairman. As the WKCDA said, we have the Hong Kong SPG. At least we should provide 2,200 car parking spaces, and that is the planning figure. But as you know, the parking spaces at 2A, 2B, 2C will not be developed in the first stage, and we are going to develop 1,700 at the beginning. And the WKCDA is of the view that this is the basic provision to satisfy the demand for people coming for cultural and arts performances, and people who come for the catering facilities, and also hotel guests, and also people who work here. So that is quite basic. But the other 500, whether that will be built or when that will be built, we can review the situation again. But I have to mention that we have to satisfy the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines. And the Town Planning Board does impose those requirements when architectural plans are approved. By 2016, 2017, when some of our facilities are commissioned, when we operate those car parking spaces, then we can try to adjust the number of car parking spaces, because we are not providing 2,200 at one go. Chairman, can I say more? If you use 1,700, I will use that as an indicator, and I presume that there will be marine traffic. And people can use the waters to access WKCD. So it's quite ironic, you know, Mr. Wong Kam Seng has just been to Paris, but then we are still bound by different regulations, and we must try to break loose of those regulations to tackle road surface traffic. I hope there can be a further reply. Next one, Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, I talked about entrustment. The PS, please show us the entrustment agreement, and I hope our clerk and our legal advisor will help us go through it and then show it to us at the next meeting. They say they are working on it, but it has to be clear. Right now, there may be arbitration with regard to the MTRCL because it may be squandering money, and some people are also criticizing WKCD for doing the same thing. So let us look at it. And also marine traffic, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned Venice, but we don't have to take a study tour to go there. We have been there ourselves. The Vaporetto at Venice is so good. Well, I doubt if people buy tickets there, but never mind. They just jump in and out of the vessels. But the PS, you are correct. It is not just the Home Affairs Bureau, but maybe the TH Bureau and then Grexo's Bureau. But if there are too many people, we'll get nothing realized. So, Chairman, you have to exercise your wisdom and power and gather these people together. But when I look at the transport side, I think they have objected all these years because they say the harbor is quite congested. And of course, we have to involve the Marine Department, and then the operators think they will have no money to make because they are already having to subsidize the vessels. How can you ask for another route that will not make money? So to me, it's not just profits. We are trying to promote tourism. You can allow people to hop in and out of ferries or other vessels if they go to different tourist destinations. So what is your suggestion? Being such an experienced AO, how can you come up with a proposal that is acceptable to all? P.S., as Ms. Lau said, it is not something simple because it is interdepartmental. On the technical level, we should talk to the departments concerned, including the Marine Department and also the Tourism Commission and also the Transport and Housing Bureau. Let us do some technical studies first. Can the Victoria Harbour support a regular vessel route which will call on different points? Yes, we can start from the tourism angle and let us see whether we can allow tourists to have a cultural tour by using marine traffic. But even if technically it is possible, it may be difficult to find an operator. We'll have to work alongside WKCDA to explore the idea with potential operators to see whether they would still be willing if there is not a profit to be made and whether there can be a marginal profits. Well, can the government support it and subsidize it because you are already investing so much into promoting tourism? I don't think Mr. Duncan Prescott knows anything about vessel operation. But yes, you can think about money, but you can think about other benefits that will be generated. Well, yes. Actually, it is not difficult, Mrs. Fong. The CS is the chairman of the WKCDA. She has a comprehensive view on the work of the government. If she thinks this is a worthy idea, then she can exercise her power and gather everybody together. Let us have some positive thinking. I'm sure her subordinates will not say no to her. So please reflect the true discussion here at the meeting. You ask people to pay fuel tax, you ask people to also build the landing steps. Of course, no one will be interested, but if you allow people to advertise on the sides of the vessels, then people might think it is a profitable business. If we all think it is good, I'm sure we can find a way out. Sorry, I took up your time. Mr. Lam Kwok Hong, first round. I stated my views last time. I think it's so hard on the year to say that WKCD is a tourism project. I have never heard that other countries would build something just for tourism, but you should be promoting your culture. And then your own nationals will have to love to frequent that place first. You go to Vatican. Did they build Vatican for tourism? It is for religion, right? This is as simple as that. Whenever we say something, whenever we build something, we'll say it is for tourism. I asked you last time, the East Kowloon Stadium project, I don't know whether you gave any thought to it. That can be a performing venue, so Hong Kong people can attend concerts there. It would be better than having another stadium, not for soccer, but for concerts. This is quite crazy. But it was mentioned and proposed by the meeting. I think it's ridiculous. We are spending so much on WKCD, and in fact, I have a different view from you. The WKCD should be for Hong Kong people. If Hong Kong people like it, it will be successful, and then tourists will come. Tourism should not be just for people outside Hong Kong. If you have been to other places, you will know.
If you go to southern France, you will find the same thing. Well, the French like to go to the south of France, and then tourists were attracted later. This is what we should do. I think it's like an illness now. You always say that we should promote tourism, but it's not that. I think it should be built for Hong Kong people. Hong Kong people should enjoy the place. And I think M+ is a scandal because you are buying Hong Kong people's artworks, and maybe there are problems. I do not see eye to eye with other members. Now, for the Victoria Harbour, there are already so many vessels, and our harbour is getting narrower and narrower. It's very congested already. So I don't think your suggestions are viable. So it's like a Christmas tree. You have a Christmas tree and you put on ornaments. It's not like that. I think we have already spent too much money on WKCD, and we have this underground basement. I object to it. It's not natural. And last time, what vessel we were talking about, I thought that was also ridiculous. I think you should really build WKCD first. Now, when a tourist comes to Hong Kong, would he be taking a ferry to WKCD just because there's a ferry? Now, if you go to Mekong River, people won't take a ferry just because of Mekong River. They want to go to a certain destination, for example, for local food. So that's why they will take a ferry. So for East Kowloon, it's the same. The cruise terminal is not successful, and you want to build a monorail linking the cruise terminal to Kwun Tong, and it would cost billions of dollars, and it will be another huge mistake. Don't even think about this. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I'm a board member of the WKCDA, so normally I won't speak here. But today we are talking about integration and connectivity with the neighbouring districts. I would really like to express my views. First of all, about ferry. Well, as an advisor to the WKCD, I have actually said this many times. I started to talk about this 10 years ago. That is, we should consider arranging for ferries. So there should not be only one destination. That is WKCD. We should think about the whole harbour, because this will solve the problem of land traffic congestion. It's also a very good means of transport. But it seems that over the past years, the government hasn't really thought about it, and the WKCD hasn't attached too much importance to it. I visited Venice almost every year. I have been observing them. So for their water transport, it's not just for tourists, because there are many islands there. So marine transport is a very important means of transport. And now we have ferries between central Tsim Sha Tsui, and also we have ferries going to the North Point, but they are playing a less important role as a mode of transport. I think 70% of the passengers are tourists, but I don't think they are operating very difficultly. So I think different government departments should be coordinated to look at this. Maybe the ferry should just be hopping along the shore from one point to another point. Maybe it shouldn't cross the harbor. Then it will solve a lot of traffic problems. Even for Kowloon Peninsula, from east to west, there are a lot of attractions. For example, in Tsim Sha Tsui, we have Science Museum. We have History Museum. So there are many points you can also take into account. And also on Hong Kong Island, we have the Marine Museum, we have the Convention Exhibition Center. So you can look at all these destinations. If you look at map of Venice, you will see that there are a lot of points to visit. So along the coast of WKCD, if there can be 2 landing points, that would be great. The government should be the coordinator. The transport departments and the cultural departments should also be looking at this at the same time. I have been making these suggestions many times. This is not my only suggestions, but I think this would really help. I hope the government would consider it, and I don't think this kind of transport would cause traffic problem on the sea. If you go to Venice, there are many vessels like this. They do not have very wide water channels, and even big cruise ships can also use their water channels together with the other small boats. So I think this is really worthy of the government's consideration. For example, you should set up a task force to look into this. So for the first round, do any other members want to ask questions? If not, we will move on to the second round. Mr. Yu Si-wing. I don't think Mr. Leung is right. Now, on weekdays during office hours, I don't think so many people are going, or local people are going to WKCD, so we have to rely on tourists. And then the operators can operate on a more sustainable manner. So I think tourists are very important. And also I would like to ask a question about paragraph 13. The WKCDA wants more water to operators to use WKCD as a landing place. And at To Kwa Wan now there is a pier, but it has caused a lot of problems to the local people. There's traffic congestion and the pier is not very good. So shouldn't the government take this opportunity to rethink about the piers in Kowloon? WKCD can be a place where tourists can land. So when a coach arrives at WKCD, it should be very convenient for the passengers to get to the pier. Now, if you just build a pier and then the coach would have to park at a faraway place and the passengers have to walk a long way to get to the pier, then it's useless. And then you would be losing out on this opportunity. So the government may not be able to answer me today, but I think maybe you should pay a visit to To Kwa Wan. Look at the problems there. I don't want these problems to be repeated at WKCD. And if you can make WKCD one of the landing places, then it would solve a lot of problems. It would not cause traffic congestion, and it also can serve passengers. Our CS is the chairman of WKCD, so I think she can do the coordination job. P.S. Well, for what Mr. Ma Fung Kwok said, actually they are quite similar to these questions. Well, I have promised that I will go back and talk to the other government departments and trying to find out technically whether it's viable. That is around the Victoria Harbour, how can we provide more transport? Of course, the WKCD should be the focus point. And for what Mr. Yu said, and it's about another level. That is, now you are saying that there are problems caused by the pier in Kowloon City. So can we make improvements at WKCD? That is, should we be planning better? I'm sure I can go back and talk to my colleagues, but maybe we need a more senior government official to coordinate in order to solve the problem. We have been talking about this for over 50 minutes, so we have thoroughly discussed the integration and connectivity of the WKCD with its neighboring districts. I'm sure the WKCDA and government officials have heard our views, and they will be reporting to us in due course. Well, I have asked questions. I hope that they can answer them in writing. As for the tunnel, in our last paper, we mentioned it. Now, for the existing tunnel, we will be reprovisioning it with elevators, and then it will also be beautified. I remember they have talked about a tunnel last time. And how about the barrier-free access and elevators in the elements? As for all these connections, the tunnels, elevators, barrier-free access, etc., I'm sure they will give us an answer in writing. Well, Chairman, we have been talking about this for years, and not a single department has promised us anything. Well, let's wait for the answer. As for renovating the tunnel, we've already talked about it, and I don't think we need to go into details right now. Okay, next item, cultural software development for the WKCD. That will be a PowerPoint presentation by the WKCDA. Well, Chairman, maybe I would say a few words first. Well, last time we've been talking about the hardware development. So this time around, we want to update you on the cultural software development in the past 6 months. Now, our facilities will be completed in phases in the past period, and many cultural activities have been held. We want to build the audience. We want to attract more young people to take part in the whole development. As for the nursery park, this opened in July this year, as you know. From August onwards, on the second Sunday of each month, they are holding free space happening at the WKCD. And from December onwards, 2 free space happenings will be held each month. So if members have time, you're more than welcome to join us. We have already attracted more than 20,000 people to come visit us, and the response have been very good. And I also want to talk about the Citrus Center. It is expected that it can be opened in 2018, and WKCDA is now putting together its rental policy, and priority will be given to Cantonese opera. We hope that we can provide support to Citrus development in Hong Kong. And also when it comes to audience and the nurturing of young artists, the Citrus Center is now organizing a series of pre-opening programs, and the Rising Stars scheme will be developed into a regular program. More young talents will be nurtured. And M+ has also been staging exhibitions at 8 locations, and the Arts Pavilion will be completed next year, and before the completion of M+, the Art Pavilion will be responsible for displaying artworks. And now I would invite the WKCDA representatives to take us through the PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Louis Yu. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Dorian Chung is the Chief Curator of M+, and we will be taking members through the presentation. First of all, about the pre-opening preparation for Citrus Center. This year, we have already conducted a number of activities. For example, in the early part of this year, we held a Rising Star scheme, which was very successful. And in the next financial year, we will have 2 more Rising Star schemes. One will be held in August 2016, and the other one will be held in February 2017. These schemes are to nurture young talents for Cantonese opera, and they will receive training and rehearsals. And also in May this year, we held our second Tea House Theatre Taster. But Tea House Theatre will be a very important part of the future Citrus Center. In May this year, at Hong Kong APA, we had our second prototype. We were trying out the future operation, and we will see how audience can be attracted.
In August this year, we held the 5th Citrus Center seminar, and we invited Ms. Shen Tianmei, the Chongqing in charge, came to conduct talks and also master classes and had in-depth exchange with the sector with regard to the operation of the Chongqing Theatre and also future cooperation opportunities. And 2 months later, in October, together with the Chinese Artists Association of Hong Kong and Hong Kong APA graduates and students, together with young artists of Chinese Artists Association of Hong Kong, we went to Chongqing Chuan Theatre. We were there for a week or so together with over 10 young artists, and they underwent some intensive training. Next, I'd like to talk about capacity building. I will be responsible for the performance arts side, and later on Mr. Chang will be talking about visual arts. Okay, performing arts. We have this very important New Works Forum, and this is for arts performers who are already working, and we are giving them professional development. One of this is Screen Dance, co-presented with City Contemporary Dance Company. This was held in July and August this year, and we invited experts in dance and dance videos to come to Hong Kong to have an exchange with dancers in Hong Kong and also from other places. And we held workshops on videotaping dances. And then there are other workshops. We cooperated with the Unlock Dancing Plaza, which is a small-sized dancing troupe in Hong Kong, and we invited a French choreographer to come to Hong Kong, and some workshops were conducted. And number 3, together with the British Council in Hong Kong, we co-presented another New Works Forum. We invited an important choreographer from the UK, Wayne McGregor, who came to Hong Kong to conduct some intensive training exchange for a week in October. And he also met dance teachers in schools, and also at the APA there was a forum attended by 400 people. He presented his work in the UK, and he exchanged his choreography techniques with Hong Kong experts. And then in terms of theatre and drama, there was the International Workshop Festival of Theatre. Altogether, we had 8 sessions from August to November. We invited 8 directors from different places to come to Hong Kong to conduct workshops together with drama troupes of different sizes. We did it with 8 such drama troupes, and different exploration workshops were organized. We hope we can enhance the professional development of Hong Kong talents. And then I like to say that we have internship programs. It was launched in 2014, and in 2015, 18 interns were attached to our offices, and they stayed for 6 months, and there were 6 summer interns. So altogether, over 24 interns were with us. Either they are still students or they have just graduated, but they are all interested in performing arts. So they worked with us from 3 months to 6 months, and there was a lot of exchange between ourselves and these students. Now I'd like to hand over the floor to Mr. Dorian Chang, Chief Curator, M+.
So for M+, as part of the capacity building, one of the important programs is called the Artist Research Program. It says artists, but it includes creative types and makers in all the disciplines that M+ deals with, which include visual art, design, architecture, cinema, and moving image. So many of the practitioners that M+ staff, curatorial staff, are especially interested in for future programming, as well as acquisitions for the collection or other kinds of public programs. We invite them to get to know the team, get to know the Hong Kong scene and infrastructure in order to develop programs as well as the appropriate acquisitions for the collection. So as you can see, so far 7 practitioners from different places, a number of them from mainland China, but also from Korea, have been invited and have spent time with us, and a few of them have developed specific programs for us. Next is called Museological Research Program. So this is more closely related to infrastructure building. As the museum construction is starting and as the staff is growing, while we have already experts and with many kinds of specialities, there are certain areas that we can benefit from talking with and workshopping with professionals from established institutions. So in the future, our intention is to bring experts, for instance, in areas of exhibition design. So we don't have a staff there yet, and it doesn't make any sense for us to be hiring staff members before the museum is established. But it is important for curators and other staff to be trained in this area before the opening. So one of the museological research program invitees has been, as you can see in the slide, Ms. Eunji Ju, an American curator who has been active internationally, including countries like Brazil and the United Arab Emirates. And she has a very unique expertise crossing between exhibition making and museum education program. So she came for 3 days and spent a lot of time with M+'s learning and interpretation curatorial team to examine all the existing learning programs at M+, and also analyze what the future plans are. The next slide shows a pioneering program that we established more than a year ago called M+ Design Trust Research Fellowship. So Design Trust, a philanthropic body established by enthusiasts in design in Hong Kong, have approached M+ to create an annual fellowship. This is a competitive application process. So the first winner was Dr. Fan Ling, who studied at Princeton University and Harvard Graduate School of Design in architecture. And he spent a number of weeks on different trips with this fellowship in Hong Kong to research Hong Kong architecture and urbanism's influence on Beijing's architecture and urbanism from the 1980s on. It's a fascinating kind of research which we were delighted to present as a public lecture just a few weeks ago on November 24th at Hong Kong Arts Center. The research finding will also be published in the future in one of our venues. And following this very successful inaugural fellowship, we will continue this program, in fact, expanding it following the desire on the part of Design Trust. And we have awarded 2 fellowships for the next year, 2015 and 16, to very well-known design critic, Joseph Grima from Italy, and a team of fellows, Juliana Kay and Daniel Cooper from Royal College of Art in the UK. Just like the Performing Arts Program, M+ is also actively continuing our internship and volunteer programs. So we have 2 intakes, spring and fall, for interns. And for each intake, we take 3 interns, and they work with different mentors in the curatorial department, very much embedded within the M+ staff for 3 months. We're going to continue to do this, but based on very positive input that we have received from past interns, we're now looking into expanding this program to 6 months long instead of 3 months long. Many of the former interns are now working in different institutions or different parts of the sector within Hong Kong, and some of them also continue to be involved with us as volunteers or exhibition helpers in our ongoing public programs. For Venice Biennale exhibition, just to remind you, M+ was tasked to organize the Hong Kong representation in the biannual exhibition in Venice, Italy. This last one opened in May this year and closed just a couple of weeks ago at the end of November. We have sent 2 technical interns and 10 exhibition attendant interns over the course of about 5.5 months. Each pair spends about 6 weeks in Venice, and they also, this time on our website, we also created a section called Interns Blog, where they document their experiences of working and living in Venice. And this turned out to be quite popular and a good avenue.
Okay.
Mr. Yu. And then in terms of audience building, last year we started different programs. As the PS mentioned, we have the Free Space Happening activity. Before formal opening, we'll continue with this activity. And I'd like to say that this is to prepare for post-opening as well. We have this very successful license issuing system for street performance. This is actually an experiment. If every week, every 2 weeks, we like to have this kind of activity, we have already started to experiment the mode of operation, and we are already building the audience. Every time we have an activity, at least 2,000 people will come along to take part. And so WKCD will be even better known to the public in Hong Kong. And also, we have other audience building activities. Now I'd like again to hand back to Mr. Chang.
Yes, Mobile M+ is the most prominent, perhaps the major public program. It's mobile exhibitions that have happened in different parts of Hong Kong, depending on different subjects and themes and disciplinary areas, including 2 overseas exhibitions in Venice Biennale. We have so far organized 9 Mobile M+ projects. So what you see here, Mobile M+ Live Art is the 9th project, and it focuses on performances, actions, events, and other kinds of live art. And this is currently ongoing, and it will be going on for another week or so. M+ screening. grows out of the 8th Mobile M Plus exhibition, which was called Moving Images, looking at cinema and other forms of moving images that were held in spring in Causeway Bay, in Yau Ma Tei, and Tokawan earlier this year. And following this successful program, we have decided to organize about 3 screening programs at Yau Ma Tei Broadway Cinematheque. The next one will be coming up in January. And the 10th Mobile M Plus exhibition is
而我哋呢亦都係將會有一個中國當代藝術40年嘅展覽，呢一個呢就係主要展出我哋 M+ 嘅希克藏品嘅。咁我哋呢就係喺希克博士嗰度呢係得到一啲捐贈啦，同埋我哋都向我哋購買咗呢個藏品嘅。咁呢一個呢就第一次我哋將呢個希克藏品呢係
in Hong Kong. This will open in late February next year. Another public program that M Plus organizes is M Plus Matters. It's a one-day internal workshop with the staff and one-day public program on various topics of concern as we develop our programmatic and collection DNA in the last 4 years and for the next 4 years as well. Now, going into the public and youth engagement programs at WKCDA, I would like to start by mentioning Nursery Park Tree Tour and Workshop. We have been holding it 1 tour per each month since July until September. From October to December, we have organized 2 tours. And in addition to that, workshops to supplement the tours have been organized. M Plus also presented our first summer camp in Saigon, inviting 100 secondary school students aged 15 to 17 for 3-night, 4-day program. This proved to be highly successful and very popular. About 200 students applied, and we intend to repeat this next year and in coming years. Another important youth and community initiatives that we're organizing is called M Plus Rover. This is a container that can transform into various forms for various purposes, such as a little cinema, an exhibition hall, and art workshops. We plan to launch in February 2016, and in this pilot period, we plan to travel to about 50 elementary and secondary schools.
最後我想同大家講，我哋仲有其他一年。
And then we'll be holding a number of youth exchanges. First of all, well, in the past few years, actually, we have many interns, and after they've left WKCD, they still kept contact with us. And in July this year, we had our first West Kowloon Youth Exchange. We've invited the past interns to attend. We want to hear their views, and we want to encourage them to organize their own events. And also, we are joining hands with schools. And now we have an event which is called Culture Mix, and 2 rounds were held in the 2015-16 academic year. The first round was in October, November this year. We have invited students from different schools to join us. They are the students who are very interested in arts, and also we ask our colleagues to talk to them about the WKCD work, so then they can have a better understanding of the art practitioners in Hong Kong. And also on the 27th of November, we held an experience day. We invited 14 students to come on the 27th of November, and they were scheduled the WKCD staff for an entire day work so that they could gain first-hand knowledge about the operations and work of WKCDA. We will continue to do this in the future so that WKCD would have a better relationship with young people. And also for Free Space Happening, we had a tour on the 8th of November. Students were invited to join us, and they were able to understand some of the work of WKCD and knew more things about us. And also we have been holding meetings with stakeholders. For example, we would attend local art and cultural events. We would give lectures in institutions and universities. We have participated in public panel discussions. We also had a small group or one-on-one discussions with arts communities. We had interviews with local and international media. We also had regular meetings with district council and other representative groups, and we gave briefings to overseas delegations. So these were what we have done in the past year. This is about the cultural software, the development for the WKCD. Any supplements? No? Okay, then we will ask questions and express our views. Chen Chi-Chin, Emily Lau, Helena Wong, Chen Yun-Han. Mr. Chen Chi-Chin, Chairman, I support the work of WKCD and it being a base for Cantonese opera development. So I really support the Rising Stars program. For Cantonese opera, I think we need younger actors and audience. Because now only people in who are 70 or 60 years old are interested in it. And I think we need more youthful power. And I received a letter lately is about the problems concerning the Rising Stars program. And its allegation is that in 2014 there was a Rising Stars showcase, and 2 awardees were not new in the field. They have received training on the mainland for a long time, and after they moved to Hong Kong, they became lecturers and APA, and they said that they were invited to join the Rising Star schemes, and they didn't apply. So you didn't have enough people to join your scheme, so that's why these veterans are regarded as freshmen, and then they would be given the opportunity to join the Rising Star scheme. So I think they're already very established stars on the mainland. In this letter, it says that it's complainant said he doesn't know where to lodge the complaints. So have you done enough monitoring work? Because we members don't know anything about this if it's not if we are not informed by this email. Well, for this kind of complaints, in the past year, we have been giving explanation to this complainant. As for the Rising Stars program, we have very clear rules. For people who are under the age of 45, as long as they are Hong Kong people and they are Cantonese opera practitioners, they can apply. We have a requirement, that is, they must have performed publicly in Hong Kong. And actually, we have obtained a consent in the profession. That is, they all agree that people under the age of 45 should be allowed to join. Because for Cantonese opera, we need a very long time to train up people. So the profession agrees to our conditions. We have been explaining, as long as he's a Hong Kong resident, as long as he has acted with a professional troupe in Hong Kong, and as long as he's under the age of 45, that's okay. So would you be dragging people into the Rising Stars program? Well, we have very stringent requirements, and there are 2 rounds of selections. They have to be judged by a panel. So for those who have taken part in the Cantonese Opera Showcase, they have all gone through these selections. So if nobody signs up, then you want to invite people. But how about the mainlanders who already have established themselves on the mainland, and if they are given the places, then maybe there will not be enough places for local talents. Now, I think some of them have already been acting on the mainland and they have received numerous awards. Can they still be regarded as rising stars? For the scheme, actually we have talked about this with the profession for a very long time. They all agree with our conditions now, that is the age of 45. As to whether they have performed on the mainland, it doesn't matter. We only care whether they have performed in Hong Kong with a professional troupe, and these are very objective criteria. But of course, we will continue to communicate with the profession. Ms. Emily Lau, with regard to this point, well, I don't think we are discriminating against the mainlanders, but on the mainland they indeed have a lot of talents. So if our criteria are not too clear, then there may be problems because the established stars may join your rising stars schemes. So I think we really need to give opportunities to Hong Kong's young people. As for the programs for the young people, I think you have been doing a very good job. And also, would you have mentorship program, or is already included in the internship program? That is, the young people can come into direct contact with mentors. I think for your interns, maybe they already had this opportunity. But how about other people? And also, the LCSD should also be doing something. You have so many museums. I received a complaint. Well, some students were given free tours of a museum, but the teacher has to pay, and the teacher is very angry because the teacher takes a whole group of students there. So can you be more open? I think the LCST can do a lot, and your facilities are already operating. The PS is here. You've heard people. We just want to give young people more opportunities. I don't know whether the government departments have done anything in terms of nurturing young people. As for the museums, all along our admission fees have been very low, but in January, all our museums will be free. It will be a 1-month program, so we will look at the effects. So for teachers as well, for everybody in January, because that is part of the Appreciate Hong Kong campaign. You asked whether LCSD has done anything. We also have an audience building team, and we also go to schools to promote arts and culture, no matter whether it's performing arts or visual art. We have school ambassador, community ambassador programs. But WKCD would keep on reporting to you. The LCSD doesn't have such a chance. I will be willing to hear from you if you really have something to tell us. You will have a one month pilot program. You have been running museums for such a long time, and why suddenly you have a 1-month program? I think in the past, or every museum would have a 1 day per week, which is free, because we are part of the Appreciate Hong Kong program. So you have not been appreciating Hong Kong in the past. Ms. Lau wants to ask you, if a teacher takes a group of students to a museum, or when we invite a group of guests to come to the museum, how come the teacher or the organizer of the group cannot enjoy free entrance? Oh, you have been running museums and venues for decades. If you've been doing a good job, then I won't be criticizing you now. Well, late is better than never. It's great now you are working in this direction. So I hope you can talk to the Home Affairs Bureau. And even if I'm not a member of the relevant panel, I will come to listen to your report.
Do mentorship, and indeed we recently had a group of young people shadowing our senior executives, so that they spent the whole day being taken through. All of our interns are placed with different groups during the 3 or 4 months with us, and they are taken through and introduced to programs. For example, we recently had an intern working on the live art program, and she was helping to organize the program alongside the curators. So that is already embedded in our programs.
我諗 mentorship 同 intern 有啲分別嘅 mentorship。
Mentors are different. Well, because you will follow a mentor for 1 or 2 years, I remember ADC did have it. So maybe you can really come up with a mentorship program. I think interns are just there for a very short period of time. Dr. Helena Wong. Chairman, I've heard about the cultural software development, I think it's good. Please continue to do it. Lately, I've paid them a visit. Duncan took me around. It's very nice. But I think the infrastructure progress is really slow, and the XLL is not progressing satisfactorily. So we have a huge site there, but it's left vacant. It's really a pity. Now we do not have the buildings, but I think we should keep on moving forward. They have several big pieces of lawn. I think they should make use of these lawns. It seems that they are just growing grass there. It's a waste. For the free space happening, I think it should be held more often so that more people would visit there.
Whether it be the weekends or in the evening, of course you can't stage anything too noisy in the evenings because people live around there. But I think there should be more done to encourage musical performances and also multimedia creative works. Now, I don't know which season, what kind of weather is good, but maybe you can have a big marquee and you can already have a lot of activities there. We've been to other places and we love this kind of festivities. If there are different themes with multimedia creation. I remember I was in St. Petersburg in Russia, and they created a big marquee, and then there was multimedia performance on Van Gogh. Van Gogh's life and also his paintings were projected with 360-degree projectors. So can you do this? This can be a kind of arts education, or you can encourage the artists to create more. So multimedia, arts performances, or jazz festivals, or even rock and roll. People love to go to such performances because they are very festive. I hope you can then bring to mind such an arts venue when people think about WKCD, and you don't need buildings to be built to do this. And you can have M+ thematic exhibitions, and you can turn them into multimedia exhibitions now. I don't know why you want to stop the Free Fest happening in March. In fact, I think you should expand it. I hope that will be part of the construction of WKCD. So you have new arts and music and movies and dramas. So people go there and inject life into WKCD before the physical buildings are built. You can do it under any marquee. I really wait for this to happen. Mr. Yu, or?
First can supplement. First, yes, I think it is absolutely part of our plan to activate the site. I'll just give you an example. 3 weeks ago we had Clockenflap, something like 65,000 people on the site, very popular, not just in Hong Kong but internationally. They've already agreed to come back and do a smaller festival later in the year. We're also talking to other people to do a jazz festival. We're also talking to other people about performances in the park. So that's already fundamentally part of what we're doing. Indeed, the team is already looking at activating the park in many different ways. This weekend we had free space, we had live art, we also had Ride for Dad, which is the event supported by the Thai Consul General, where we had, I think, 50-odd, 60-odd people riding bikes in the park. We're activating it as much as we possibly can. The only caveat of that, of course, is that we will soon be closing down most of that site for the redevelopment into a formal park. And when that happens, we need to change the approach. we're looking at ways that as soon as we get back the site occupied by the MTRC, how can we activate that site? So, for example, I've had some discussions with young architects here to see if they would be interested in putting together a pavilion like they do in the Serpentine in the UK. Part of the site could be occupied. You could then use the pavilion for events, for programs, for exhibitions. Next year, we will have the M Plus Pavilion opening in the park site. That will become a focus for exhibitions organised by M Plus, just as you've suggested. Beyond that, of course, the idea of putting in place opportunities for different groups, not just events organised by us, already part of our programming, and we're talking to different organisers to try and bring that on. So there's an awful lot happening, and it will continue.
Maybe after the meeting, you can give us a paper on your plans for the next 1 or 2 years for our reference. We understand the plan is subject to change, but then we'd like to be informed. Ms. Chen Yunhan, I agree. I had wanted to say the same thing. Mr. Pescott was saying this, and I thought perhaps we could go there and watch a drama production, and would like to be informed beforehand. I think this is such a good place when you do planning for development. As Dr. Helena Wong was saying, she was talking about the transitional arrangements. Now, of course, if you have to do construction work there, we won't argue with you. But right now, and talking about the access to the Sichu Center, if we come in from that side, it's quite narrow. Maybe you have works to widen it. Well, and when I left for another panel meeting just now, I said that you are talking to schools nearby about the fire service station, and then the road would be much widened. I'd like to hear from the PS whether that is possible. And also, this is going to be a landmark. It measures over 40 hectares, and we have invested so much money into it, and it should be linked up with Chim Sa Choi so that the entire place will be a vibrant place. The people are using the China-Hong Kong ferry pier, and I'd like to ask you whether you would also link up with that pier. You should do early planning so you integrate with other facilities nearby. Maybe this is not for the PS to answer, but you should talk to different government departments. You should be able to foresee that WKCD would be very much frequented, and that is why in the first part we talk so much about traffic. Please come back to cultural software, Ms. Chan. Yes, I am talking about this. Yes, you are working on the software, you have transitional arrangements, but later on connectivity will be important because people would be coming to the site. I like the PS to answer this point. And that is about the access to the Sichu Center. What will happen to that road? It is narrow. What if you move the fire station away? And in future, are you going to also talk about China-Hong Kong ferry pier? Well, I think we have already covered that in the first part, so please be very brief. Yes. There are two parts to the fire station. One is the station itself, but then behind it you have a works area and also a warehouse. Since the uses are not in line with the cultural district, we are going to move the work area and also the warehouse to another place in Yau Chim Mong. But then the fire services department has a performance pledge, and that is it has to arrive on site within a certain period of time, and that is why we still have to find another site to accommodate the fire station. But then there is the intention to do it so that we can come in from Canton Road to the Sichu Center. I still have some time. Can I continue? But I hope you will come back to the cultural software. Please do not talk about traffic. Well, this is still the meeting, isn't it? Since I have been ferrying to different meetings, well, I don't have to talk about traffic. I can talk about the software. But talking about the transitional period, like the access to Sichu Center and the free space happening, I'd like to know how you can have better connectivity. Can we reply you after the meeting, Ms. Chan? Do you have other questions on the cultural software. No, this is very much connected. No, you are asking about the hardware, Ms. Chan, not software. Next member, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Chairman, from this paper, we have this topic, public and youth engagement. I think this is not innovative at all. First, you have the nursery, park, tree appreciation. This has nothing to do with WKCD. You can do it anywhere. And then engaging young people, you have the M+ summer camp involving 100 people. So it's a big group, isn't it? And then next year, another 100. And then you have the exchange program. This is a repeat of the nursery park tree tour. And then we have no Chinese for this culture mixer workshop. First, very few people take part in these programs. So first question is, you have such a small number of participants. Who decided on who are the participants? Is it by ballot or is it by any priority ranking, or have some people got the privilege, or do you invite the participants like the 100 people at the camp? Who will take the question?
M+ Summer Camp was done as an open application. We sent out information to various schools so that teachers can identify students who will be interested in this. I should also say that this wasn't just any summer camp, but it was led by 10 professional and well-respected creative people, including a visual artist, a filmmaker, and writer. As I mentioned briefly, there were 200 applications and we were able to accept 100. And in addition to that, there were 15 university-level volunteers who are working closely with the teachers as well as the high school students. So I think it is an extremely rare opportunity for a high school student to be able to spend such close relationship with professionally working artists. I should also mention that 25 of the 100 applicants coming from low income were waived the participation fee.
You did not answer my question. You have 100. You said that you gave the information to the schools. So did you have special schools to send the information to? Did you send out the information to all schools? How did you do it?
To all schools.
All schools. Are you sure? All schools of Hong Kong?
Well, I'm not sure if it is every single school, but it was sent out quite widely.
Okay.
Then I don't understand. If you send out the information to all schools in Hong Kong, then you must have done it through a channel. Did you do it through the education department or did you do it yourself? That can be traced. So you have to give me a clear answer. Was it by direct invitation? Was it by invitation? Did you have an invitation list or a short list of schools?
You mean by invitation list?
What I'm saying is, did you send a letter to all schools in Hong Kong to tell them about it? Or did you have a short list of a few dozen schools or international schools or what?
What I can answer is that I believe we work closely with Education Bureau. But how the schools were selected, I cannot answer at this point.
So you should not have said you sent out the information to all schools because you don't know. Should I ask Mr. Eddie Ng? Next member, Mr. Yu Si Wing. Thank you, Chairman. First question, Sichi Center. The WKCDA has already said that they would like to enhance the artistic level, build the audience, and also facilitate cultural exchange. Do you have quantitative figures? After opening in 2018, every year, how many people can you entertain or receive? And how many CG performances can you put up every year? And what about the cost? You say you would give priority to certain organizations, and maybe you have to operate at a loss because some of the organizations are non-profit making and you cannot charge them a high fee. And after doing your sums, well, let us not talk about the construction cost, but the operating cost. Do you think you can maintain your management team? Do you have enough to pay for the utilities, etc.? Do you have that kind of projection? If you do, can you provide the information, please? Second question, the positioning. Recently, you carried out different activities. In 2013-14, the Bamboo Theatre, and then later on, the Rising Star program. So you tell people that WKCD is very active, and later on, in terms of promoting Hong Kong's culture and also capacity building, do you have a relatively stable kind of consideration like the Rising Star program? You have done it this time. Are you going to carry on with it? You have started it. Will you cooperate with the Chinese Artists Association to do something at the Yamate Theatre? And will you give your support so it can become a regular program? Do you have a long-term program, or do you do it just on a year-on-year basis so people can still hear about WKCD?
Mr. Lewis, I will answer the last question first. In the past few years, we have held different activities because we are preparing for the long-term direction of City Centre. Well, we'll stopped Bamboo Theatre this year because the site is now being built on. So after the City Centre is open, we will hold the Bamboo Theatre events again. So for this few years, we have been preparing, and after the opening of the City Centre, we will have other Bamboo Theatres. As for the Rising Stars scheme, it will be one of our flagship schemes in the future. We started it this year, and next year we will have 2 cohorts. And after the City Centre is open, the Rising Stars scheme will become a regular scheme so that young actors can have a platform. And each year they can take part in trainings and performances for 2 to 3 times. As for the other questions, Mr. Pasquale will answer.
Obviously, that's something we are studying at the moment. We won't be able to come to detailed and definitive numbers at this stage because obviously the building's still under construction. So what we've done is to put in place a consultancy with an operational team that we're building up, and we're working with the operational team for that building to draw up the costing for that. That's something that we're working on at the moment. But with basically 3 years to go, that's something I'd probably come to more detailed information in the next year or so.
好啦，咁啊，因為個時間關係咧，仲有
We still have several members who would like to ask questions. I have a question, so I'll draw a line for the first round. As for the second round, Ms. Emily Lau would like to ask questions. So if you want to ask questions, please raise your hands now. I have a question for M+. Well, I heard your presentation, but I still have some questions. For local artists and local arts communities, do you have connections with them, or are you just nurturing young people and building audience? That's well done. But how about local artists and local artist groups? It seems that you do not have a lot of connections with them. And how about internationally? Are you liaising with them? Because M+ will be a very important museum. So in the international arena, are you fostering any connections of performing arts? It seems that they are liaising with other forms of operas on the mainland. But how about visual arts? And I have a second question for you as well. For your collection policy, what is it like now? In the past 3 years, we've heard about it here, but it seems that it's quite messy. We asked about the collection policy, and we were just told that when you see an art piece that you like, you'll buy it. So we don't think that's a certain direction. And we ask them why is it so expensive, and they would say that because it's a soft fee price. So I hope that M+ won't become a mega art gallery like the other galleries we see on Hollywood Road. You shouldn't be working for auction houses. You should be promoting arts and culture, and you should also be raising the levels of both the audience and the artists in Hong Kong. Mr. Chung?
Yes. Mobile M+ exhibitions that I spoke about, we have organized 9 of them so far, and many of them include artists from Hong Kong as well as international artists. Especially when we organize group exhibitions, these are really good opportunities to bring local artists from Hong Kong, from the wider East Asian area, including China, Japan, and Korea, as well as internationally. That was the example with the Moving Images exhibition in spring, and the current exhibition, Live Art, also includes 3 Hong Kong artists out of 10 artists. So this is something that we're very much conscious of. Other public programs such as M+ Matters always engage local scholars from universities along with experts and specialists from other areas, other museums internationally. So it is always local and international mixture that we're thinking of for all the public programs. In terms of collection building, the acquisitions essentially follow the same kind of logic that as a museum that is based in Hong Kong, that we have been building very robust foundation of works by Hong Kong artists and architects and designers and filmmakers. So far, of about 4,500 works, more than 800 works, so about 20 to 25% of the collection are by Hong Kong makers. We have very clear acquisition policy that defines that what our disciplinary areas are, what our geographic focus are, and in terms of acquiring individual works are based on the most reliable sources. It's not just the galleries that we buy from. Sometimes we go directly to artists, or sometimes we go to artist estates. And there is a very thorough vetting process, and our current interim acquisition committee that has been meeting for 3.5 years, we have had more than 20 meetings, are tasked to monitor and ask questions not only about the relevance of each work for the collection, but also for the price as well.
Well,
for local artists and artist groups, seems to me that you have not been contacting them very actively. So I hope that you can have a concrete plan to contact them. As for your acquisition policy, do you have a roadmap? Can you give us your roadmap in writing? And before the opening of the museum, would you have acquired enough quality works? Because our audience won't just be coming from Hong Kong. It would also be attracting overseas tourists. So I hope that we can really have a rich collection so that people can have the opportunity to appreciate great art. So please give us the information in writing after the meeting. Next, Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, just now we talked about schools. I understand that you have been inviting schools to join your programs. But there are schools which are poorer, and their students are from grassroots, and some of these schools are in Yuen Long or Tin Shui Wai, and some of the students even haven't been to Central or Tsim Sha Tsui. And Mr. Siu Kwing Chi is now a music conductor, and he would go to Tin Shui Wai to work for Band 3 schools. It organizes orchestras for them, and the students are very happy. So I hope that you can adopt a fair and equal policy, because sometimes when you want to invite schools, some students cannot afford to do it. Otherwise, you would just be nurturing students in well-off schools. Well, so in remote and poorer areas, there are students that are in need. You can't just invite every school in the same way, because there are schools that are in poorer condition. And I think even from the grassroots families, some students may be very talented. So you can't just invite every school in the same way. So I'm explaining to you what the students in Hong Kong are like. I think you have to take particular care of the underprivileged.
I agree entirely with you. That's one of the reasons we're putting together the M Plus Mobile, so we can actually go out to these schools. We will be paying for that. There'll be no charge to the schools. We'll be taking first-class artworks, exhibitions, and opportunities for the children themselves to get involved in creating artworks. And just one example, for the summer camp, we actually waived fees for students from some of these schools because we recognize the importance of being universal. We don't want to exclude anybody, and that's certainly part of what we're doing.
Chairman, if you waive fees for certain students, that is a stigma. I hope you understand. Well, some do. Well, if you can make it general so that nobody pays the fee, then there would not be such a social stigma. You are not from that group, you do not understand. It is highly sensitive. If you have a group going out and suddenly you say, oh, so you got the fee exemption, huh? Oh, so anyway.
Reveal who pays and who doesn't pay. On what basis would they be making those accusations?
So anyway, just make sure that the students, although they are young, they feel very sensitive about such things. So I just hope that your program will be very well supported. People will be clamoring to join. Absolutely. And they would be students from different districts and different financial background.
Absolutely.
I have the same view. Well, other than inviting them to your performances and exhibitions, you should also bring art to them. And you should also cooperate with local artists and art groups. You don't have to stage extravagant performances or show them huge masterpieces, but some of the students have never been to performances or exhibitions, so I think we should work hard together. Okay, I would like to thank you for attending today's meeting. Before I adjourn the meeting, on AOB, I would like to talk about our work timetable. Now, according to our operating rules, if in the coming few months we do not have any other new subcommittees on policies, then we can operate again. But now we have to adjourn our operation for a while, so if there are questions, they can be followed up at the Home Affairs panel. Well, that is due to our work timetable. Can you let the clerk speak? Maybe I can supplement. The House Committee made a decision at the meeting on the 9th of October for our subcommittee. It can continue to operate until the end of December this year, and then we will have to put this subcommittee in the waiting list again because there may be some other new subcommittees, and we expect that by early May 2016 this joint subcommittee can start to operate again. So we will just be taking a rest for several months, and I'm sure we can catch up with our work. Well, how can that be done? Well, I think we should always be following up. So what proposals do you have? If there are no other new subcommittees, then we can continue with our work in May. And in the interim, if there are any questions concerning the WKCD, the issues can be discussed on the Home Affairs panel. Well, Chairman, we have to follow up on a lot of issues. Yes, indeed. You are a member of the HA panel, right? So I hope this item can be added to the agenda of the HA panel. Otherwise, things about WKCD will not be discussed. Clerk. Well, during this period of time, if there are issues that have to be followed up urgently, they will be discussed at the Home Affairs panel. So there will definitely be follow-up work. I don't think the permanent secretary would be too eager to do this. Are there further discussions in the near future? From now to May, we will be consulting members of the Home Affairs panel. So during these few months, we will still talking to members about WKCD, in particular about marine transport. Yes, we will definitely be reporting to the HA panel. Well, without the subcommittee, we will still continue to work. We also raised some concerns at this meeting, so please answer them in writing. Well, talk to the HA panel. Well, you will have to give them time. Maybe there should be additional HA panel meetings. So would the clerk tell the HA panel? I'm not a member of the HA panel. If there's anything, they should inform me. Are you not a member? No. Why are you so surprised? Well, because you are so concerned about this. I'm concerned about WKCD. I'm also very concerned about the LCSD venues. Well, then why don't you join the HA panel? Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas and New Year.